I'm over here just singing my heart out. Is that any better? I see that I'm on now. The one time I get a raid. The one time. See here. Yeah, we got microphones now. God damn it, Panelito. Who are you fucking dropping us into? This guy doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Pan, thank you so much for your help and assistance there. I'd have been here for fucking 2 hours like that shit. So, let me restate this. I am John. I have a microphone. It works. Grinding Gains here is my morning show on Thursdays where we go over exercise and workouts submitted on the subreddit of RangeFitnessOnline. And then I give you my 2 cents on what you're doing good, what we need to work on, and some ideas to build off of. My whole shtick aim here is helping people to move well and help them not be in pain due to movement-related issues. And so that's the game. So if you got questions, holler at me. Let me know. Stop me in my tracks. Let me know that my mic's not working or working. I actually had to make a fucking short about this one time, and you'd think I'd learn from it, but all right, y'all, let's get into it here. So the first one up is going to be a Romanian deadlift. So I've been cycling through Romanian deadlifts and squats for my lower body for the cycle, so to speak. When I mean cycle, I just mean kind of period of workout plan. So one of the things I have been struggling for the raiders that may still be here is I've been having a lot of issues with what I'm identifying now is kind of what's my right serratus interior. Nerd, I know. But what the problem for me with this expresses is more of a collapsed or compressed right downside shoulder for me relative to my left. Oh, hair dripped all over my shirt. Anyways. Hey-o. There he is. Man, I guess you missed me with my mic issues. Or in any case, so what I've been doing, and I think I have one where we'll show this. It kind of looks like a flagpole. Have you ever seen some of the calisthenic guys do the flagpole exercise or whatever thing? I am not doing that, but I'm using it. No worries, dude. Thanks for the raid. Sorry, my fucking mic was off when we got in. Appreciate you coming by. But when I would work on stretching that sucker out, and that helps me sit this shoulder back. And so the whole point of the stream, the whole point of the channel, right, is helping people identify those things for themselves. So that way, again, they can get the most out of their workouts. You know, they don't get any pain during their workouts or after their workouts. So what I've been noticing early on, if you go kind of through all of these, anyways, no, I appreciate you. Thank you. Appreciate you. We trying to make something here, man. I still got to make out to one of your streams. I catch you I see you clicking, but I'm always driving. Have a good one, man. Have fun at work. Remember, if you got to be there, you might as well enjoy it. So working on, again, opening this up, because I was having, for me, is what is referred to as a wing scapula. Okay. All right. Well, I got some dead time today, so I'll try to get on there. Take care, my man. So what was happening for me when I only noticed it really when I was videotaping. Fucking Twitch, saving my ass. It's all for the viewers. So on my right shoulder, we scroll down. Let's see if I can find one real quick. Yeah, there we go. So like on my right shoulder, right here, you can see how this right shoulder blade. How we doing, Miss Princess Jessica? Thank you for stopping by. You're raiding from Panelito. I always say his name wrong. I used to put an L in his name. I used to also think he was Hispanic. Appreciate you. What's your workout goals, or what are you working out on? Or are you just enjoying Twitch? But you can see here in this paused clip here, you can see a little rise on this right side here. So if we enhance, that is not enhanced. We can, see that little, that's a huge marker. See, I'm from the deep south. I get in trouble for calling people ma'am and shit like that. It's the one good thing I got from being in the deep south. There we go. Well, appreciate you, Miss Jessica. We'll have to keep that in mind too. So what I'm working on for me, the big thing that caught me is in a couple of these videos is you can see this difference here on this right side. And over here, we can't really see it, or it doesn't exist, so to speak. And I'm always willing to say, like, maybe it's camera angle and things of that nature, but upon further inspection, like when I can reach back there and catch sometimes that scapula winging out. And it's very common dysfunction for people. So fortunately for me right now, it's not presenting any pain, but it is the thing that is causing me issues during my workouts. And so that's why you'll see me fussing with these shoulders and trying to get them organized and what have you. So for a Romanian deadlift, yeah, we can see here, actually, look at that. Not so bad. We'll see. Oh, I'm still getting my shit organized. So far, not so bad right there. We'll see how much that presents. And this is terrible cameras. So on a Romanian deadlift, I think of this as purely as a hip hinge or a forward bend if you come from a yoga background. All right, so while this is from the backside view, a posterior view, right, we're still can get some of these cues that we're looking for. So if you're familiar with, again, that forward bend sense, we're just hinging at the hips. And so we don't want to see any bending of the spine necessarily. No, not really any bending of the knees or lowering of the hips either. We want to see just really the hips traveling on a horizontal plane, as it were. To really show off like my nerdiness is, I think of things as like in a Cartesian graph. If you can think back at like maybe middle school or high school or college, where you had to have the chart paper, little grid papers. And so for me on squats, I think about my squats and lunges and various deadlifts, right? I kind of think about my hips moving on that chart in some manner. So for a Romanian deadlift in this variation, I'm thinking about my hips purely traveling backwards on the X axes, right? See, because let's get back into it. So again, for me, my big focus right now, as I'm watching me, is watching that right shoulder, as that's been the thing that's been causing me issues. And it's part of the reason why I'm using a Romanian deadlift versus conventional deadlifts, or a full deadlift, as you may have also heard them called. Does that help y'all's view at all? Just gets my ass straight into y'all's. And so it looks like that shoulder's doing fairly decent. You can see a little bit of gap in my hand here versus, well, they look pretty even. Just kind of taking note is like, are we losing grip? These indications of, again, compensation sinking in. And so if you're watching, right, I've just racked for a moment, gathering myself. Get your shit together. Redoubling down on the grip, making sure I still got a good core and shoulder setup, and then getting back and trying to finish down a few reps here. Now, it's a little hard to see because, again, we only got one foot in view because of the camera angle. One of the big things I'm back and forth in my mind, right? So the name of the title of the stream today is completion or execution. What the fuck does that mean? We're killing people out in the gym, John? Killing ourselves? No. A workout should be more than just like a punch list, right? We got squats done, check. We got chest press done, check. We want to really think of it as like the execution of the movement, and I really try to treat movement as a skill. I coach movement as a skill. So part of this, as I'm in here, you can call me Miss or Madam, all you want. Pleasure to meet you, kind sir. I am Princess Jess and or Jessica. Either one is just fine. Just don't call me late for supper. All right. Pronouns are she and he, and a part of LBGQ, in supportive and loving community. Glad to have you here. You are very welcome to be here, and I appreciate all the information. We have a stream on Tuesdays. If you're interested, my colleague Paul is a part of it as well. And he is very, very much made it a clear part of our mission to make sure we're inclusive for anybody and everybody. So definitely feel welcomed here. Thank you for being here. Peeling back into being mindful of, again, our body and movements. Can I get into the view? It doesn't really show up. We'll do it this way. Get some feet pics. So we want to think about our foot and having this tripod foot, right? So we got our heel, the big toe, and the pad all connected on the ground. And then, don't block out. We want to get both those feet roughly parallel. What up, Naj? Lurking in yoga. Come on. Make sure you engage that core. Draw it in. Don't complete the yoga. Execute the yoga. So again, thinking about our feet positions, we want to grip the ground with our feet, get the heels engaged. So even in yoga, Naj, if you're doing any type of chair poses and you're keeping your feet flat, right? We get the whole foot of the whole foot engaged. And so that's always another thing we want to be watching for in any type of leg work or groundwork. Squats, deadlifts, those things. Right, so we can even kind of cue in watching our foot. Is it moving? Do we see it rolling? Specifically on squats, we'll get to those in a moment. Do we see that heel lifting? Though I will say, all in all, I really like how I'm feeling with this stretch in the lat and ribs area. I'm going to shove that one here in a second if you're able to hang on for a while. Now, other things you can be watching for yourself, depending on again, there's a lot of moving parts, right? This is where I can kind of get a little ahead of myself. But we have an ankle, a knee, our hip, our shoulders, our elbows, our wrists. How many vertebrae in a spine? I should know this. How many? Human spine. 33. All right. So again, we have our ankles, our knees, our hips, our shoulders, our elbows, our wrists. You think of your head, and then 33 little fuckers all up and down your spine that make up your spine. Just highlighting the fact there's a lot of degrees of movement and variability in our bodies, and we do want to have that. Like, Naj, you're going to yoga. Yoga is great, especially like flow yogas where you get to kind of move in different positions and transition to and from. I love resistance training. I like lifting weights and such, but one of the problems is it's just this very, you stay in this very rigid place, right? You have to go up and down in this one place. A Romanian deadlift is nothing but a hip hinge, right? There's no rotation. There's no extension or anything of that nature. You know, that's one argument you can make for like Olympic lifting, of why Olympic lifting is a great thing. The plyometric effort, yes, and the high calorie burn rate and all that. But if someone has good form and technique, they get to express their joints in a wide range of motion with loads. As I belch. Sorry about that. So again, working on, for me, right, it starts out with clients, again, just learning the general movement, but then stacking on the various complexities. I always think of a cake. If you're making a cake, me and my wife, we watch a lot of the Great British Baking Show. Just happy TV. And one of the things I've taken away from it is like, you can have a delicious cake and the judges will still just be like fawning all over these people. But if it's like a shitty cake and they made it really pretty, like the judges don't care. I mean, that they give props and like, yeah, it's pretty, but like the way they describe it, the tone of the voices are just so much more disappointed. Right? And so I think of, again, we want to make sure we have a good cake when we're exercising. We want to make sure our core is engaged and that we're having a good, clean movement. Then we can add fancy icings. Then we can add, fancy decorations to the cake and make it all elaborate with things like maybe a Turkish get up, or again, some sort of Olympic lifting where we're doing some overhead pressing while we're squatting. Like, we can add that complexities once we have the base. But if we have a bad cake, all the fondant in the world isn't going to make it any better. All right, let's move on, John. More deadlifts. All right, so I just was showing Romanian deadlifts. So this next one looks to be a conventional. So this athlete we're working. Always love the British baking show. Yes, have to gather the ingredients before starting the recipe. Yep. Have the ingredients ready and make sure you're using them right. So right now we're seeing first off is a conventional deadlift. So the big difference here, for those who are unaware, is that you'll notice she is setting the bar down and then picking up the bar. If you watch here, for me, one, I have the bar up on the rack to start. And while we have you can't quite see the weights here, I'm never setting the weight down. It is always within, the entire resistance is always within my body, so to speak, versus it ever getting to rest or be on the ground. The other big distinction here is a Romanian deadlift starts at the top and works its way down. Whereas a conventional deadlift, you notice, starts at the bottom and works its way up. So again, taking like the British baking show, right? You can still take the same water and flour, but depending on how you mix them, getting way out of my depth here, but it can change the type of bread, right? Or if you let one rest more versus the other, you get a frittata or brioche or ciabatta or something like that. I'll let y'all massage the analogy. I'm the exercise guy. All right. So again, looking at conventional deadlift here, we're getting a front view. So we don't get quite as much as being able to see maybe from the hips and see what's going on with hips and knee drive or knee angle more so. But from here, we do get to see a lot of things to be able to build on. So one of the things I'm seeing is from this angle is I was going to say 33 when talking about the vertebrae. Just didn't type it in. I got to give y'all more time, huh? I honestly had no clue. I knew there was a lot. The things that for me that I think about is the landmark of where your ribs begin and end is where the thoracic begins and ends. What's your background? Did you know vertebrae? What's your background with exercise or fitness or anatomy? I don't think that's a very common knowledge. I don't hear a lot of people just spitting out 33 vertebrae at the back of their. One of the things we're seeing in this deadlift, right, is I feel the knees could bend a little bit more over the toes. And so we get just a smidge here at the beginning, lowers the hips a little bit as well, get a little bit length and lift the chest up some. And we can't quite see the from the side to get a complete cue, but from here I feel like her hips may be a little bit above her shoulders. Right, and so again, we bend the knees a little bit, try to have our shoulders just a smidge above the hips. Is going to be an ideal setting up. This also helps us kind of give a sense of that we're maybe kind of falling back against the bar some to be able to kind of wedge ourselves underneath it. Now here we'll see is we have a supinated, or again, a palm facing up grip. I always think of giving myself supper. Right, so we shove the food into our face. And here we have a pronated grip. It's the opposite, pronate. It's palm down if you want to think of it that way. In any case, we can see there's this difference in the grip, which then is going to facilitate a difference in the shoulders. It was also a spiritual thing as well. The knowledge I gained from the medical aspect from taking care of grandma until she passed. You're a caretaker. Tough stuff. My mom, was a caretaker for my mom as well. Learned a lot of things that you didn't realize you were going to learn in those moments, don't you? About life and everything, I feel. Yes, so we can even see here just from the littlest difference in the grip, how that makes a big difference here. And so this is kind of how we think, or how I look at and apply things from every aspect of a workout, right? So if our foot's a little more rotated out, that means the leg is going to work a little different, right? And so if we have our head tilting one way during an exercise, right, we're going to be training that movement pattern during that as well. Or again, maybe we have a twist or a shift. And so all these little adjustments, right, we just need to be aware of. Now, this is a very necessary thing for some people, they elect to do it, and that's fine. It gives more stability, or more strength, if you will. We can feel more secure and doesn't take as much forearm grip and hand strength. Granted, yes, may not be able to fit myself, but was most definitely try to make the best of it, at least when I walk when weather is nice. Yeah, right now, you said you're in the central time zone, I believe, right? What a bit, browser big brain. Chicken legs. That's not very nice, sir. But yeah, you're saying you're central, and I'm here in Texas. There is not much good time for walking outside, it feels. Even with me getting a workout in, it was about 4 a.m. today. It was still muggy. But you know what? Like my pops, he can't handle the hot weather too well. And so he goes and does some walking in on a treadmill, right? Just get what you can, where you can, how you can. Yes, our weather in Illinois is most definitely as bipolar as I am. Yes, we've always kind of felt that way about Texas weather. I not to speak to bipolarness, but just kind of one day it's raining and the next day it's cold. I mean, hell, here in Texas we had hail and just ridiculous windstorms out of nowhere, and then we had a couple weeks of snow. Was it about a month ago, 2 months ago? No, not a month ago, a couple of years ago. And that giant freeze blizzard. It was like below 20. Not good times, especially when you're not used to that kind of shit. When the summer before was 110. Wild stuff. So we get this deadlift. Where we leave off. Got distracted. So again, on conventional deadlift, we're doing a good job. Set it down, take a moment if you need to. But you always want to get this tension in the bar on the conventionals. All right, so we get down, make sure we're rigid, tension, and then press through the ground and stand up. Yeah, I've heard and seen get cousins near Georgetown and Florence area. Okay. Yeah, family all over. What we're seeing here, and it's probably part of the reason the knees may not quite be getting over the bar, and I struggle with this a little bit myself. Every lower body exercise, as far as I'm concerned, starts with a hip hinge. And so we want to start always with this sense of taking a bow from the hips. And this does one primary thing for us, and it's loading. It's telling the body, hey, we're using the glutes and the hamstrings now. We're loading into that portion of the body. And so as we start that hip hinge, it's going to pull the knees back a little bit, and we want that. We want to keep those knees slightly back. But we get to this point here now where we simultaneously got to keep pushing the hips back as the knees drive forward a smidge. And this will, again, lower the weight and lower our body kind of as one. Now, if I was going to be kind of a jerk about things, my big encouragement for this athlete would be, again, once you get yourself down there, if you can, stay tight. Uh-oh. I didn't see that. But we're going to have to keep things engaged and tight as we're making that lift versus kind of sitting down there letting things go. We always want to keep everything nice and rigid throughout, even at the bottom. If we get to the bottom and we're tired, we got to let go, so be it. I would encourage you a full eject. Let go, set the weight down, catch your breath, then reapproach. But if we can develop this sense of we get down there, we're tight, we get everything in place, 3, 2, 1, however we psych ourselves up. Well, so to that point, right? Absolutely. We don't want to create the effort through the spine. And that's that hip hinge. We get that hip hinge. And then from here, trying to, again, lower the entire body while bending the knees, to your point, Miss Jess. A lot of times to this point, people may kind of feel the desire to bend at the back and round their back. And likelihood in this place, you're not likely to hurt yourself because you're going to probably let gravity do a majority of the work. Where that's going to happen and causing the problems, I think, for most people is we get to this position. And this is a good point. This is a good moment to talk about this, especially on deadlifts. Deadlifts, people drop the bar all the time. They allow the gravity to do the work for them. And so we miss out on this moment of controlling that eccentric, controlling that weight down to the floor. We also want to really make sure is we build up that strength, because as we build that strength, it helps us with that contraction, that there's the contraction, the squeeze, and then the eccentric or the elongation, how I think about it. All right, so we want to get down into the bottom of our position, the bottom of the deadlift, the bottom of our squat, be tight, but then be able to create that leg drive through the ground. And this is where it becomes more about execution versus completion. We want to execute the lift through the legs, not complete it by possibly lifting up and rounding and arching the back and stuff. And so the more we can practice that movement, like almost like a robot, right? We're going to develop that neurological connection, but more importantly, we develop the strength around the joints so that we don't go bending at the back when we don't mean to and messing up our backs. Right? Because those excessive bends, I don't have any good demonstration. Let's see. If you think about like an ice cream sandwich or right, if you have an ice cream sandwich and you squish on one side, it's going to smash out the ice cream out to one side. And when we're looking at those spine or the vertebrae, right? Well, dang it. Work with me. There we go. There we go. This one right here. All right, you can see the little white space in between there, right? That's the disc. And so if we have even forces pressing down and above, right? Life is great. Life is good. But if we start having ourselves kind of in an awkward position where now we're putting a kind of a tangential forces on these things, right? Well, that's going to force, like there's going to be a reduction in space on this side, which means there's going to be broader space on the back side. And by consequence, right, the disc is going to get ending up pushing out this way. Right? If you just think like a water balloon sitting in, like if you squeeze the water balloon in your hand, right, you start pushing hard on the water balloon on one side, it's going to push that water balloon out. And if there's not enough for the water balloon to start sliding, right, it could potentially rupture and shit. So you're right, Miss Jess. We want to have that spine in a good neutral position and create movement through our big joints, through our hips and our knees and our ankles. Appreciate that. That was excellent. And so deadlifts are great for this because they get us a chance to train that and practice it. And we just want to make sure we're using loads that are appropriate for our programming. So again, we're watching this athlete. Love this. Actually getting more knowledge and honesty makes me want to keep walking and trying more. You should. Little bit. Is there like physical pain that's kind of keeping you from getting out there, or is it something else that's kind of messing with you, if you will? I know there's a lot of things that can keep us indoors. I'm gonna watch this view one more time real quick. We're gonna get a count for how many reps because I am terrible at counting reps. The other thing too is while I'm thinking about it, right? We have this overhand, underhand grip. We don't see it in this clip, but because I know this athlete, they switch. But if you are starting out lifting like this, you're going to find that you're much more comfortable and even stronger with one way. Make sure to switch them up though. And I lost count. I stopped counting. 1. Exhale as you lift. 2. That's the other thing too, right? Make sure you're breathing during your lifts, right? We inhale as we elongate or get the eccentric. Exhale when you're doing your lifts. Sometimes I think about like a balloon. Is that 4? Take our nose. 5. Hips back, knees bend over the bar. And kind of see that moment we just kind of let go there. I challenge you, if anybody out there is deadlifting with barbells and plates and such, on your deadlift, how quiet can you set it down? Looks like she's going for about 8, 9. One more. I think one more makes 10. Yep, and good fight there at the end. Yeah. All right. So based on the reason why I wanted to count, my asthmatic bronchitis was born with. The weather is a huge effect on me, especially with breathing, but still try to take Gatorade to help me with electrolytes. Okay. Can't breathe. That makes it really tough to. It's one of those things like you can have all the will and the desire and the know-how, but if you just can't get the air in, you can't do it, unfortunately. Well, I can't speak to bronchitis or asthma. I just know if any, from my perspective, I mean, obviously follow your doctor's orders and instructions and guidance, but I would follow anything like progressive overload principles. How familiar are you with that kind of concept or idea, or are you familiar with progressive overload? Right. So the reason why I wanted to counter that too, get back to another thought I was having. So it's kind of giving a little bit of hell with the taking a moment in between the reps and then letting go, or kind of fidgeting or collecting yourselves. I think a really good place to tell if you're at a beginner or intermediate level of lifting is, can you get to this place of strict tempos? And so do we have a good 4-2-2 tempo where we take 4 seconds to get into our eccentric, allowing the weights down, pause for 2 seconds, and then stand up or lift up in 2 seconds, and then we just bam, right back into the next one? Maybe we take just a heartbeat to just be there. But commonly I find for beginner and even kind of intermediate lifters is, one, that moment between reps, we rest. And that really is a great opportunity for you just to get back into the next rep. I'm guilty of it as well. If we can get away from the top of the rep, or that finished rep is a pause moment, and we just get right to the next one. Again, trying to be as much of a machine as we can during these moments, and keeping the form and the technique as crisp as we can during those tempos. Right? If we can really work these tempos in between, it really is going to change how intense your workout will be without really needing to change or add weights to it. But it's going to hit the entire systems, right? When we take that little break, it's either because we're having that burn in the muscle, which is a good thing, or we're having a cardio breathing issue, which we're being taxed on, which is a good thing. But pushing that limit ever so slightly by not giving yourself those little breaks. So you're still trying to be active around the house to do the best I can. Just have to do it in moderation, and I need some low carb recipes. Okay. So yeah, it sounds like you have a specific weight goal or a weight loss goal with being low carb and just trying to stay active. Dumbbell overhead pressing. Oh, so again, the rest period. So again, trying to have again that good rest period, or not allowing that rest period in between your sets is a huge thing that all athletes, I feel, can really work on. All right. We got overhead pressing now. I'm gonna say, have you followed Degenerate Princess Jess? He does some cooking from time to time. He does a lot of veg cooking. Yes, of course. Just got to actually stick to it. My stubbornness. I get you. Well, I think you seem like you probably already know this, but if you don't, I'll give you my 2 cents on it. But the best things for any type of weight loss is just going to be trying to put on some lean mass, which means strength gaining. Does not mean you got to go get a barbell and lift those things. It just means you have to stress your muscles some way. Progressive overloading. Oh, y'all can't see the overhead presses here. Progressive overloading is just, again, doing a little bit more than you did last time in some form or fashion without, losing form or technique. And so the other thing I would just say is, again, right, low carb, those are all great. Find some I don't do a lot of nutrition with my clients because nutrition's tough. As you, well, I'm probably more than well aware. But I always say if you have a plate, just probably put like one set of veggies on there. Doesn't need to be whatever your veggies should be or however many veggies you ought to eat. Just put some veggies on there. 3 little broccoli florets. Just a little small spoonful of cauliflower rice. And then you can eat whatever else is on there, but you got to eat that. And then still apply progressive overload. All right, next time it's going to be maybe 4 or 5 florets of broccoli and then 2 scoops of cauliflower rice. And then that's it. You're all good, lovely. I'm enjoying the conversations and lessons. It's about how we did it in my group counseling. Cool. Well, again, holler at me if you got questions. So let's look at this overhead press because there's some things I'm seeing that needs to be addressed, at least from this perspective. Roll to here, and unfortunately, can I zoom in? But does that help? It does. Too much. There we go. So I'm going to be willing to admit that maybe the angle is throwing some of this off. But from the jump, let's see. We're going to pause. So we're going to snip it. Where'd he go? Come back, snip it. Snip it. All right. Get this squared up. So we see a few things that jump out to me initially. One, I kind of feel that potentially the hips are coming towards the camera. We're kind of, but again, it may just be because the camera's low and the angle of it. But again, it feels like we're coming out of the screen towards the camera, which would kind of indicate that our shoulders are kind of falling backwards and the hips are coming forward. Probably shouldn't use blue with a blue outfit. Go with red. So first off, we just kind of have that little bit of instability showing. So again, taking it back to the whiteboard I had earlier, right? Making sure we have our feet in good placement for standing overhead press. Overhead press. Anybody ask, what's an overhead press challenging? It's going to be, I'm working my delts. I'm working my upper chest, bro. I'm getting my triceps. And that's true, right? Like if you went to one of these machines in the background and you looked at them and there was an overhead press machine and it would have like your delts and it would have maybe the upper chest and the triceps and the little red paint showing that that's what's working. You go Google any exercise about overhead press. It's going to say, for primary workers, shoulders and delts and triceps. But what's going on with our feet? What's going on with our knees? What's going on with our hips? What's going on with all 33 vertebrae, right? We want to create a stable foundation and then create movement outside of that foundation. And so, again, just kind of looking in this, it's not the best angle to tell. We'll kind of look back at it too with live action and see if we see any body sway. But to me, I feel like we may have, again, a little bit of the hips extending forward and the shoulders falling back, which would kind of indicate like maybe a hyperextending of the low back. Also, again, maybe some locked knees, potentially maybe in this right knee. It looks like it might be a little locked. So that's just like the structure foundation right now that we're looking at. Now, when we start looking at the lift, we can start seeing some other things, right? We can see the wrists are kind of in this broken position. Almost like we're trying to carry a boulder. We're not carrying a tray, right? We're carrying a tray, it'd be like that. So we're kind of carrying a boulder. So what I would encourage is, I was going to say, I think maybe even holding the phone in the right hand more so, but that may not be the case. But it does look like kind of like cell phone hand. Where's my phone? And if I have my phone here and I'm looking at it, like that's not too far off from kind of how we look at it. No one looks at it, their phones curving their palm into them. Very rarely, right? It's always this broken wrist position. And so again, we kind of see that on both, or we do see this on both hands. So first thing would be to kind of tease is this sense of rolling our knuckles in and over our fingertips on both sides. All right, so again, I always kind of tease like you're trying to give a good bird. If you're from America, we have this thing called shooting the bird, where you give the middle finger out. You want to have a good rigid hand when you shoot the bird, right? You can't have your hand down here because no one sees what you're doing. You got to let them know. You got to curl that finger up towards you. So, but same idea here, right? We gotta lift the knuckles up towards ourselves and think about having the knuckles over the wrist in this position, even over the elbow, as we'll start looking at this angle here at the elbow and to the shoulder and the wrist, right? Overhead pressing, any real pressing, I'm considering my wrists and my elbows staying stacked. All right, so in a vertical press such as this, I want my wrists and my elbows staying stacked at the bottom. And as I press up overhead, I want to maintain that relationship. I don't want to bring my hand over my head and my elbow goes wide. I don't want to go too wide where my hand's way outside of my body and my hand's no longer under. Again, one of the mental images I have is my forearm is a pillar. And so where can I contain the most balance and stability? Right? It's going to be the pillar stacked. We've all been to that bar top or that restaurant or table that just wobble, right? If we have that base solid underneath it, there's going to be less wobble. And so we want to have the weight over our wrist, over our elbow at all points in time. But when we do this causes a lot of trouble for the rest of the shoulders. And the big thing that I can tell she's working on is creating good external rotation of her shoulders. Mostly because I complain about it all the time with it. And we can see it by the fact that the wrists are wide. So mentally, we're struggling to rotate into that externally rotated position. And so we're doing a good job. I always wibbles wobbles, they don't fall down. That's when you got to get the little sugar packets or the napkins. She makes fun of me about that. Man, I don't care. I'll get down there and we're going to level this damn table. We are not having dinner with a wobbly table. I also like this idea of being the Y in the YMCA. Don't be the A in the YMCA. Right? If we're being the what is it? Young Men's Associate. We don't be the association. Don't be the association. Be young. Right? This is going to, again, get in the sense of externally rotating our shoulders, which is going to put our shoulders in a very stable position. Why do we care? Stable shoulders are going to be less likely to get injured. It's going to allow you to express greater strength from that position. When we go into less stable positions, you're going to have greater ranges of motion, so to speak. You're going to be able to reach further. Like if I'm externally rotating at my shoulder, I can only reach this close to the camera. But if I internally rotate my shoulder, right, I can reach this close to the camera, right? That's the difference. But when we're in that instability, we're not as connected. We're going to be there's some slop. There's potential for tissues to fall inside of joint crevices, if you will. And that can also, again, create impingements or even chips and tears. And so that's the whole point of trying to create these stable places. The other side of it is we just don't spend enough time there. This shit. Right? Even my desk here, like I'm the fitness dude that bitches and moans at everybody about being in better postures and everything. And even here, it's like it's hard for me not to be sitting here on my desk, rolled over in my shoulders, collapsing the chest. Right? I got this mic that I'm trying to speak into, which pulls me forward. I got cameras and stuff I'm looking at. All of it just pulls us in. Yes, and you don't end up hurting your shoulder or needing rotator surgery. I need the effects. But you know the kicker of it, Miss Jess? Let's say let's just say, for the sake of argument, either you just found out about this and you didn't know any better and you already had the shoulder surgery, or let's say, you're making the change now. Either way, if you're going through shoulder surgery because of whatever, you're going to go through the same process that you would now, right? Like, the rehab to rebuild the shoulder to get it usable again after surgery is going to be the same things that someone has to do now with healthy shoulders to keep their shoulders healthy. Like, there is nothing magical. It's like if you have a car and you got to take it to the tire shop and like, oh, you got to replace the tire, right? Okay, you replace the tire, like, and you still keep driving into the curbs, or you keep kind of, I don't know, just riding the curb or something not right. You're going to still have to chew out. You're going to still have to replace the tire, right? More than you need to. But if you learn again, like you start driving better and keeping things in the right lanes and not, just goosing the shit out of the engine and just peeling out and stuff like that, right? The tire will last the life that it's supposed to last. There's also the same process, because that's what the rehab exercise teacher teaches, is help regain what's lost best as possible. Exactly. Right? So it's like, do you want to do it now or you want to do it later? And again, it's the big place I come from is it's everybody's their own choice, right? There is an ideal way of lifting for longevity and vitality. If you are looking for competitions, if you are, a young buck trying to get a scholarship somewhere, I get it. D-Gen! What up? D-Gen in the house. Princess Jess, meet D-Gen. If you're looking for some low carb cooking, D-Gen's your man. He does like ridiculous veg dishes. A lot of what is he? Root. What do you call it, D-Gen? Your root mix. Your chop up root vegetables and bake it. Anyways, welcome Raiders. Thank y'all for being here. Naj, you're back. D-Gen, good to have you. Grandma had go both shoulder and hip replace. Oh wow, that's a lot. Roasted root veg. Yep. Now there is some point where like age dependent stuff is going to come into play, right? And arthritis and just other degeneratives. And we get to a point where, we want to return these bodies in a used condition, well worn, not just broken, right? And so building that, when we're having, again, the ability to move well and ideal, the more we can do that, the more it's just going to benefit us, because when we do have to go in for that maintenance, for that 100,000 mile checkup, right? Whatever repairs are needed, those correctives afterwards are going to be the same correctives we could have been doing to help us go another 100,000 miles without the tune-up, if any of these analogies make sense. So somehow, somewhere, we were talking about overhead pressing, so we're going to get back to it. Reset. Arthritis, don't remind me. Oh, the cold weather's coming fast enough already. Yeah. Now, that to be said, though, depending on how far the arthritis is, again, arthritis can't be reversed, so don't get me wrong. But, again, as with anything, we can help the body out. And so by building up some of the stabilizers that help ease the joint to where it's not having to ride into those arthritic spurs, can help ease some of that by, again, as you already know, better than most of us, right? There is no cure for it. It is what it is, and we just got to minimize the damage, as it were. So yes, on these overhead presses, so again, like I was saying earlier, one thing that I would encourage for this athlete is put a band maybe around the wrist. Now, I know this gym doesn't have any bands like that, but again, you can bring your own in. And this is going to help us, again, it pulls our wrist inward. And fancy word is proprioception. It's just how your body sees itself in space. A very common, Paul's got a good example of how to do this. It's something like, what is it? You sit up nice and tall, and I think you close your eyes, touch your nose, and then you straighten out your arm, and then try to touch your nose again, or something like that. There's a sense of, can you end up in the same place, as it were, or do you end up really far off? And it's just how your body sees itself within our dome. And so when we put something like a band around our wrist, it pulls our wrist in more into that A-frame. Like I was saying, don't be the association. You want to be the young in the YMCA, right? So by having that band, it pulls us in, and so we pull against that band a little bit, which helps us externally rotate, and then working that press. Yeah, I was trying the technique they taught grandma on how to get up and out of a chair and going upstairs, go up with the good and down with the bad. Okay, there you go. How's that working for you? Does it help any? Or is it just something kind of little mental game you play? Yeah, the band around the wrists here would be a really good benefit, and just helping stimulate some of those externally rotated rotators of the shoulder. And again, well, good. And then, like I said earlier, the little roll of the knuckles. I think a lot of times we see, and I was guilty of this, is we think this, and there's time and place for that. But I really encourage, because again, so much of what we do, like we look at our keyboards. Is that in the screen? Right? Like the keyboard's got this angle to it. All right, so when my hands are on the keyboard, all right, I got that little break in my wrist. My mouse, right? We're gonna have that break in our wrist. We're driving. Typically, we're gonna have that break in our wrist. So finding those moments when we can train in places we're not used to training, and work on, again, trying to help build up some of those muscles in places that they're not used to, right? A lot of times too, right? We don't realize it as you're talking about grandmas and caretaking. One of the big things caretakers have to do, right, is open up water bottles, open up pill bottles. Just open up, and there's the old adage of like, you gotta get someone to open up the pickle jar and stuff like that. But all right, we get to these things where we have to help with small grip things. And part of it is, right, if we can work on part of it is shoulder mobility. If we have poor shoulder mobility, we actually, the body down regulates how much strength we have. But again, if we can work our joints in places that they're not used to, right, this can just help build us up overall to where maybe those things aren't as an issue for us later down on the road. Used to have those wrist rests for the keyboards to help less the strain on the hand. Yep. To help kind of keep your wrist in that more neutral posture versus, again, that extreme break in it. And part of it too is, again, if you being active versus resting is another thing, right? If you can keep your hands up off the ground, that's going to be more beneficial. I always tease, right? Sitting. A buddy of mine, he always says seating is one of the worst things that's ever happened to humans. Right, because I think I'm in the shot. Yeah, that's good enough. Right, because when we're sitting here, like my hips are just in this shortened position. We're just sitting here, and there's nothing really going on with our legs. Like, sure, I can engage in my core and sit up kind of tall, maybe. Maybe I can push, like I can push in the ground a little bit. Maybe I can think about lifting a leg or something. But again, there's not a lot of effort into our legs here. So maybe if like we had a fancy desk or something that we could pry our knees on and we could like lean and press up, you could have that. And now your hips will be in this active position doing something there. But really, again, sitting, we don't do anything. And so because we're not doing anything, it really does cause problems for us as we get moving, right? Because then when we stand up, our hips are kind of maybe aren't used to having to work because they're in this position of just not doing shit. Yeah, playing the piano, having a good posture and hand position. Yeah, my mom played piano for hours. She's played since she was 13 up until started having eyesight issues. But yeah, my mom ended up with kyphotic spine. I tease a lot of times people, we give a lot of hell to our technologies. All right, but as the Hunchback of Notre Dame, man, he was around way before a cell phone. But my mom had a kyphotic spine, so it was like a little hunchback. Probably about the top of the thoracic, the base of the cervical. And it just came from she did a lot of reading and she played a lot of piano. And so we're in this constantly being pulled forward posture. And again, we kind of slump over time, especially over hours and hours and hours. It's hard to sit up very tall in that upright posture. It's exhausting. And there's a reason we fidget and move, right? Because we sit in one position, we get tired, and in the other, and we get tired, and back and forth we go. All righty. Let's look at some back squatting. So this is a back squat for barbell. But a lot of these things I'm going to talk about will still apply to a bodyweight squat. They'll still apply to a goblet squat. They'll still apply to any type of squat that you may be working. All right, this is just a different variation, a different tool that may have a different application for us and such. But, right, it's all the same movement. That's why I said movement is a skill. We just get good at the skill, and then we can test the skill in different manners. The sitting good posture learned from choir helps me with the diaphragm breathing. And yes. Speaking of diaphragm breathings, you know what you reminded me of? Sit-ups. You ever done a sit-up where you felt your diaphragm? All right, let's reel this thing back here. So again, for me on my squats and stuff, it's been this right shoulder is actually my problem. And having issues keeping, whether it's today actually wasn't so much the bar on my shoulder, which was nice. It was more of some bar issues in my hand and over pressing, as it were. And again, what I'm noticing and discovering is I can keep my shoulders in a good, strong position in that sense of not letting it collapse down. Rather, I'm thinking to be broad across, even in the ribs to some degree. I'm trying to, again, feel my shoulders as flat as possible. Now, I don't do it well here, as you can see. But even as I was picking on the other athlete about that wrist break, here I need to also be mindful of myself of trying to get, again, that rolling the knuckles forward so that I can get that nice flat forearm versus, again, this broken wrist. And the better I get with my shoulders, the more that helps. Your cousin was a PE teacher and a basketball coach for years, and that helped as well. That's cool. That's cool. Keeping you active, keeping you moving. Basketball is one of those things I really always loved. I was never good at it. Just being 5'8" does not help in basketball. I'm not. What was his name? Bugsy. Yeah, but I can jump decent, but basketball was just one of those things that was always a lot of fun. Plus, being an only child, right? You can play basketball by yourself and still have a great time. Playing football by yourself is kind of boring and kind of difficult and kind of sad. But we found ways to do it. Don't get me wrong. I'm better sitting on the sidelines. We all have our strengths, you know, and we just got to recognize where our strengths are. But that does not mean you shouldn't be able not to enjoy. You should still be able to enjoy basketball if you so choose. As long as you don't stop at the hoe. Don't you gotta finish. You gotta become a horse. Can't stop at being a hoe, okay? All right, bad jokes aside, let's get back into squatting. So squats, what I'm looking for a squat. Earlier I was talking about a Romanian deadlift or a conventional deadlift. And those two are their differences. The big difference for a squat and a deadlift, right, is we see is going to be the body position relative to the ground or to our legs, depending on how you see it or choose to look at it, right? Assuming you're all adults in here. Figure it out on y'all's own, right? No. So for a squat, I like to really emphasize the sense of my shins. A straight line. Probably need to make this a little broader. Let's get a thicker one. The sense of my shins, I guess my shins are more like right there. My ankle to my shins, and again, we're going to get trying to my hips and my shoulders. And roughly trying to have them as parallel as I can. All right. So here I feel like we could probably get maybe a little bit more uplift in my chest, or maybe a little bit more knee. Actually looking. So maybe a little bit more lift up through my back somewhat, but all not a terrible position, I would say. What we'll normally see, and what I'm normally we'll have to pick on with clients, yeah, we can see the bottom here, is this space right here. And we're talking foot positions earlier, right? Keeping our entire heel flat, or our entire foot flat. But a lot of times what ends up happening is people lift up here. They lack the ankle mobility to be able to express their knee over their toes in such a way that they can keep their heel flat. Now, biomechanically, like the mechanics of our body, yours, mine, anybody, right? There comes a point where the knee comes so far forward that structurally we have no choice but to elevate the heel. And so this is how, again, we can tell ankle issues versus it being a hip issue. Right? If someone can get into like a good Romanian deadlift, right, they have an excellent hip hinge, but when they go to squat, they can't keep their heel flat. What's the problem? What's holding them back? In process of elimination, if you will, is we would say, well, they're not able to, again, get the knee this far over, which means this angle is not as small as it should be. What's keeping this from being a shorter angle? Well, there's only a few things, right? We look at our foot and how our foot works with the calf, right? We have the calf muscles all back through here. And most calf muscles actually even wrap underneath our feet. All right. So if you can just imagine along that red line there, that kind of fishhook looking thing, right? That's just constantly squeezing and pulling the foot down through the floor. That's why people can't keep their heels flat. That's why you see so many fitness forums encouraging people to use weightlifting shoes. That's why you see so many people in forums talking about lifting barefoot or lifting with like limbs or Vivo barefoots. They hit from different angles. It's kind of funny to me. The zealousness, zealotness. Like the Hatfields and McCoys, again, for my American viewers. You have these two camps in the fitness world that is like, you must use weightlifting shoes, or you must lift barefoot, or use minimalist lifting shoes. And they're both coming at the same problem from two different angles. One is just ignoring it in that regard, is when we put that heel under our shoe, or we put that heel or that lift under our heel, right, that artificially extends your ankle joint, right? So where we don't have to allow the length in the calf anymore. We just kind of say, it is what it is, and this is what it is. The caveat being would be, I guess, if you're truly working Olympic lifts, right? It does help keep your calf in a little bit of that pre-tension position. I could see it as a way of trying to help prevent injury and such. Again, if you're not going to the Olympics, if you're not getting a scholarship over it, if you're not getting paid for it, and I would encourage you just finding ways of using your body as is without adding things, so to speak. I do like the minimalist shoes. I do like barefoot lifting. I lift in minimalist shoes. The caveat being, though, is you can't just be wearing your fucking Nike cross trainers and then jump into some minimalists. You'll very likely, if you do that, you will very likely have a lot of foot and calf pain. Because again, your entire life has been in this shoe that has kept your heel lifted, which has kept your calf in a quasi short position since you put the fuckers on, right? When you change that foundation of how you take every step of your life, you are using different muscles. You're going to be using different movement patterns, really. And it's going to change how everything works. And you're going to find that your feet are going to fatigue out. Your calves are going to fatigue out. You may end up with some hip and low back pain, even if you go too aggressive with it. So the root cause is really is a shortness in the calf that keeps a lot of people from getting their knees over their toes while keeping their heels flat. I think we finally landed. Now, all that being said, my fucking issue is I have too much weight in my heels typically. My issue is I can feel no weight in my forefoot, which means I've got too much of my mass kind of backwards, and I'm not keeping my center of mass over the middle of my foot as well as I should. Now here things look pretty good, right? Again, so I like looking at bar path, right? Want to making sure we're kind of thinking of it as a hallway. Everything just stays in the hallway during our lift. Thank you. Thank you. Son of a... Pressing too many buttons. And see, what happened was I think I moved Twitch chat, or at least I thought I moved Twitch chat. And then I came in there, I started hitting Control Z to put Twitch chat back where y'all were. And I think I muted myself. In any case, so the big thing I was focusing on, thank y'all again, appreciate it, is not looking down at my feet, right? Not letting my head bend or look down at the ground or get too over looking too much at the mirror in front of me there. Geo, very educational, must hear. Geo. Like if your knowledge of signs of language also comes with reading lips. Well, appreciate all y'all making sure I ain't just talking to myself. So thank y'all. Again, just looking again. So we're looking and trying to gauge our squat. Again, with a back squat, it's very imperative that we make sure that this bar is over that middle of the foot. Now, if you're doing a body weight squat, you're still trying to keep your center of mass in the middle of your foot, in the middle of that track, if you will. Goblet squats, suitcase squats, any type of squat you can come up with, right? We're trying to keep that right there. I just finally connected to what you said there, Miss Jess. So, sign language. Very awesome. Very awesome. Definitely don't start talking to yourself. Oh, that's where people will wonder. It's okay to talk to yourself. It's just if they start talking back, that's when you got to be worried. Or something like that. Bad mental health jokes. Bad mental health jokes, John. All right, so let's see how we do on the overall here. And kind of see that my head a little forward, not terrible. I'm trying to get a good eccentric down. Too late. And so I'm really trying to focus on a good 1-2 count at the bottom here. If you kind of hung out with us before, I've talked about this a lot. We want to develop strength in these end ranges of motion. Too often we get down to a bottom of our squat and it's like we're putting our hand in the fire. How hot's the fire? I don't know. I will. I did it. What we really want to do is we want to put our hand into the fire, feel how hot the fire is, feel that the fire is not starting to burn us, but we just can feel that it's uncomfortable and we should probably get out of there. And then we can get out. All right. And then we go back in. And then we come back out. And then continue. Like, even if you did this like with like a piece of meat, don't do this with your hand. If you took like a piece of raw meat and you just kind of put it over a flame for a few moments and then you pulled it back out and then you put it back in and you pull it back out and you had to count to yourself 4 seconds. You slowly approached the meat on a fork towards the flame, held it there for 2 seconds, and then you pulled it back for 2 seconds. Slowly approached the piece of meat towards the flame for 4 seconds, hold it over the flame for 2 seconds. It would take for fucking ever, but you'd eventually cook that sucker, right? That's what we're doing here, right? We're executing. We're not just completing. Just like I told my ex, I put the hot in psychotic. Oh, Lord help us. Thank you, Miss Jessica. Thank you. And that's definitely like, making lemonade out of lemons. I like it. I like it. We're at the bottom of this squat, though. We want to try to own that bottom of the position. This is going to, again, help us, allow these tissues to lengthen. Very common issues, right? We're talking about sitting and how there's nothing going on in our legs when we sit. I don't know what it is about Reddit, but it brings out the best in people. So we will continue on with the best in people. And this is actually not a terrible fucking angle for this analogy. There is a thing called a squatty potty. We're going there, people. We're going there. The whole point of like that squatty potty, right, is it gets us into that, like you're out in the woods. And we're kind of hovering. Right? That's the difference between a chair. Let's not make this look into something pro Elon or something. There we go. Chair. It's a chair. We're going to do a different color. We're just going to do different colors. We'll go blue. When we sit, right, everything's just resting. We may have our glutes in a lengthened-ish position, but it's not the same as like carrying our mass and pushing it back up through the ground. But this is why we need to squat. This is why we need to train into these deep positions. Because we all got that buddy who's got that couch who should have been thrown out a couple years ago, but they keep keeping it because it's so comfy. And it ain't no lie, that fucker be comfy because swallows you up. But trying to get yourself up and out of that sucker, right, becomes an issue. It ain't so much a fucking issue when you can squat with some weight on your back, or you can hold 20 or 10 or 15 pounds in your hands, and you can get to the edge of that chair, get yourself in that position, and then up you go. Try hovering, just don't fall, or it will be a definitely shitty situation, right, for everybody involved. We get into this place though, right, where we have strength in our legs there. Definitely Mike's. Whereas most people, right, they end up, if they are sitting up, they end up having to use momentum to vault themselves up and out. Right? And so Princess Jessica, when you're talking about your grandmother and some of the caretakers or PTs that y'all are working with, right, they may have advised her and y'all to work on sitting to the edge of the seat, like get onto where your sit bones are to the edge of the seat, get your knees over your toes, get your chest over your knees, and then push through your feet to stand up. Right, the big difference maybe between what I would encourage and what they're encouraging is I think about like where our spine is. But again, we got to meet people where they're at and what their current challenges are. All right, we get this, it's that same idea though. We get that center of mass over our feet. Then we can create that drive upwards. Otherwise, because we're so far back into the chair, the only way out is for us to like thrust and throw our bodies. Or more commonly, especially someone like who might be a little overweight, is we will use rotation, right? So we'll rotate out. So maybe there's an arm that they can post on the chair, right? And we'll lean real heavy on that arm, ourselves up and out. So all that to be said, right? We want to find, doesn't matter what the mass is. I mean, like, we just want to develop first using our body. And then once we've adapted the skill, once we know how to move our body, we start adding stressors to it, like a barbell or a kettlebell or dumbbells or whatever you may have. Maybe you don't have those things access to you, so now it's just some single leg stuff, right? Or you can even work on doing more time under tension in these extended places. Excuse me. Yeah, that's how we did with the residents when helping in exercise, when I volunteered at the nursing home in the activity department. Well, that's cool. Miss Jess, you just everywhere. Helping your grandma, helping the neighbors. Got your brother helping at the high school. All right, so again, some more back squat here. Now, the reason I wanted to do this angle was I was noticing in the prior set, the bar was tilting. Now, I didn't bring it up because you couldn't see it in the other one, I don't feel, or maybe it wasn't as present. The other side too is, again, just nice to see different angles to see, and there's 3 planes of motion really. And so we think of one as this rotational, right? So if I was in a cylinder, I could just rotate in the cylinder and not touch the sides. Then there is, I get these ones confused. So if I get backwards with them, just forgive me and correct me when you can. We have the sagittal. So it's like a hallway, right? So anything that's in that hallway is the sagittal plane. So things like running, chest press, squatting, all that's in that sagittal plane. And then there's what's called the frontal plane, which would be, again, a narrow hallway that went, our left and right. So this would be things like jumping jacks, side bends, or shuffles. Like if you're shuffling back and forth, all that would be in that plane of motion. So those are the 3 primary planes of motion. Again, now in any exercise, we're only going to ever elicit or call on 2 of them. If we go, the body won't let us do 3. If we end up 3, we'll end up creating injury very likely, and not going to be a good time. So again, exercises will commonly have one, if not potentially two of these involved. So therefore, we can think of exercise then as, sure, there's the things that we were aiming to do, but by consequence, there are going to be things that we're aiming not to do. And so again, as a squat is this thing that's going to be in this sagittal plane. Anything that is in the frontal plane is unwanted. Anything that's in the rotational or transverse plane is unwanted. Right? So it's not just enough to know that we want to stay in the hallway. We want to make sure that we're not going anywhere else outside of that hallway. If that makes any sense to us. As always, getting set up, making sure. Sorry about that light bar. We're going to make the best of it. But right there, we kind of see it as I was setting, is that left side looks to want to tilt a little bit. And so that's really what I'm trying to watch for as best we can with being blinded here. And we can look at other things as well, what's going on with the feet, knees, and hips. It actually isn't looking too bad. And so in my mind's eye, one of the things I'm really driving on is pushing my right hip back and being broad across my chest, almost like I'm trying to lift my left side a little bit. And I'll tell you, this is much more exhausting for me. You may even notice too, I'm not taking that pause at the bottom as long as I should, mostly because this is very tiring for me and I'm just trying to get done. Being a completionist, not an executionist. Yeah, that right here. This we can kind of see it as I'm setting up, and I'd be willing to bet, a Mars bar, that I did not realize this until I saw myself in the mirror. And then getting every situated. So again, focusing on inhaling down, we're going to pause right about here. Again, other thing, and this is for my mind, so to speak, in my body, is I'm curious on this lower body too. So for me, and some of the observations I've had for myself is my right leg likes to externally rotate a little bit more than my left. And I also feel like I've got a little bit more of a collapsed, maybe ankle going on this right side. And so just trying to pay attention. We were talking earlier about the foot positions. You're not 100% sure if the camera is exactly square. Right, that can always play a little bit of a factor in these things. But just trying to see, does the foot look nice and flat? We're getting, looks like pretty good knee, external rotation, external drive of the knee. But I always am kind of curious what's going on with this right foot of mine. Because this is, again, I got a little bit, occasionally I can flare up some pain on that toe. Or at least I used to. When I was younger, I have 2 bunions. Not on the same foot. Different feet. So my big toe on this right side can be a little bit of a problem for me. And again, it's just been one of my areas that I've been focusing on in conjunction with that right shoulder. All right, so again, for me right here, I'm really, again, trying to think about this right glute coming out towards the screen, whereas this right shoulder, again, is also kind of coming back into the screen. Almost like, again, this line here just has to be a little tighter, as it feels like for me when I'm in that squat that I'm collapsing into it. And I think too, again, if we think about it, the stretch I'm about to highlight with everybody here is I got a lot of tight relative is I got a lot of brevity, if you will, on this right side. And it's not too apparent right in here right now, I don't think. So I'm a little tighter over here. So again, this pulls a little bit of my body that way. All right, if we got this excess tension pulling me here and down and towards this, I've got to work on opening and being against that. And so that's where, again, being behind helps with us. But more so, we take the moments just to kind of break them down so that way we can really highlight, are we doing as well as we think we are? Because again, if we've had any experience with our bodies, right, our bodies like to lie to us. Now at the bottom, I'm also watching for people, do they get a butt wink? And I think I'm doing a good job of not having one as I'm about to highlight it for people. On Mars bars, you're a little bit before my time. Sounds like you're late 80s candy bar. Either way, save it for the cheat days. Yeah, I'm about 40 myself, so. But keeping that butt wink, you hear a lot of people go against butt wink or say butt wink's not an issue, that it's normal. Remember we were talking about earlier with keeping our spine neutral alignment, not letting, again, herniations and things of that nature or bulges happen with the 33 vertebrae. Butt wink is nothing more than a compensation. And so we want to keep this, again, our spine in this neutral, rigid position as we hinge and stand up. Deadlift, hip hinge, or deadlifts, squats, lunges, chest press, rowing. That's all the same. A little sweaty. Right there, right there. Right there. See, we're getting towards the middle of the set a little bit, and I feel this right. You can see a little bit difference on this right shoulder versus this left shoulder. Even in this wrist, I know I got the band on here, but even this elbow. See, this is why we're nerds. This is why we're dorks. We can catch some of this shit. All right, so we can see a terrible little drawn red line there. No, we got this red line. All right, we can see that gap from the left to the right. And we can kind of see how this is not as flat as it looks over here. So I'm really needing, y'all can't even see that. My bad, y'all. Our sign lady, I ain't talking to y'all, and now I ain't showing you the goods. So this is what caught my eye. Y'all see it? Very, very little, very minor. We can see this gap on this side versus the other. And again, we can even see a little difference in kind of this portion of the back versus this portion of the back, right? And you can see a little more glare on top of my arm, where up here there's not as much glare. So these are just little visual cues that when I'm working with clients or when I'm looking at videos of myself or anyone, like to help me see what's happening under the skin. Because there's all these little tensions and tightnesses going on, but how are they interacting during movement? And we want to see these and try to adjust them, right? Again, I always go back to cars. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I worked in Sears Auto when I was in college. If you have a car and it's like, you got a little shake to it, but then you speed up 5 or 10 miles an hour and then the shake goes away. Like, it's real easy to just say, fuck it. Don't worry about it. Especially if it's not a speed that you go often. Like I get around my area, it's like 35 miles an hour is a pretty common speed. And if you're on the freeways, 60 to 80, depending on who you are and how you are. So between those like two speeds, maybe 45, 50 in some parts. But again, it's either 35, we'll call it 70 for an average. So if you're going those two speeds 80% of the time, but you get this wobble, let's say at 40 miles an hour, well, fuck, you only notice it when you're accelerating and You know, a lot of times we just chuck that off as, well, the car's accelerating and I got a beater. And so everything shakes at, but what's really at play, what is it? Who knows? I don't know, John. This is your made up analogy. How am I supposed to fucking know? Could be just the tires out of balance. It's very likely that you got a wheel out of balance, right? You need one of those little metal things hammered onto the rim. And once that gets balanced, right, then it's just going to be like butter. And you'll never notice it. The way you can, not to get into a tangent, right? But like the way you adjust for that, right? If you hit 80, right, and it starts getting again real wobbly. So all that to be said is, right, when we can start feeling a little bit of wobble in the steering wheel, we know something's not exactly right. Doesn't mean we got to get a whole new steering suspension or steering system. Doesn't mean we need a brand new car. It just means we might need a little 5-ounce weight hammered on the side of the wheel and maybe a half hour of, dealing with a goddamn tire guy. That's all this is. Noticing a little bit of a wobble. And if you know how to take care of it, you can take care of it. And if you don't know how to take care of it, I know a guy. So for me, what I'm going to continue working on is just being mindful of trying to keep this elbow tilted slightly forward, really trying to generate it from, again, my shoulder complex, the sense of tilting my shoulder back. Again, almost like someone just to reach through and just like grab my shoulder and rip that. Is kind of the idea. Kind of. Gently. I'm definitely not going to say anything. I'm going into the corner and being have. I'm assuming going to the corner and behave is what we're going to go with there, Miss Jess. So, and that's what really kind of caught my eye there. That's why I wanted to highlight that with y'all. Again, it's just these little things. Again, it's not the end of the world. Again, it doesn't mean your workout has to stop and then you got to go off to the side. But it's just good to know, because these, again, it's that little thing can start building up. And you don't want to end up like Princess P, where you just keep putting a whole bunch of goddamn mattresses down to ignore that. It's still going to be there over time, right? And likely it's going to get worse if we don't do something about it. Now, one thing I was kind of noticing for myself during the lift is I felt like I was doing a little bit of a staircase. It's kind of how I sense it, or a seesawing. And so towards the second half of the set, I was really trying to be as smooth down as I could versus, again, feeling that staircase in a little bit. So these are all little things to work on within ourselves, because, again, that sensory, that proprioception is important. Last little thing I want to see here before we move to the next. And if we take a line, terrible. There we go. And just kind of sensing where the spine is, and then where the hips, terrible. There we go. Maybe a little higher. That looks 90-ish. Looks 90-ish. That idea, again, that Cartesian graph or a chart. Again, look and think about my spine alignment, and does that seem like we're even? Does it like hit my pants seam roughly even? I think all in all, it doesn't look too terrible. Again, I'm always a little concerned about this right side. I feel like maybe this right knee could come out a little wider, but not at the expense, again, of this foot lifting up. And so I know this can't spell it. I've got my phone is so cracked. So when I'm watching, like, there, I think you can see it there. There you go. There it is. Look at all that. Yeah, it's like the night sky. So when I try to type on Twitch with people, it is terrible. So this can be a lot of information for people, right? Like if someone's new to lifting or squatting, like this is just, oh my God, there's all these. I'm just going to stay on the couch. This doesn't have to apply to you. You may not have this issue. And so that's why I always think about just learn the movement, right? You learn your basic movement. see what you see. Like, again, when I assess a client, I just want to see how they move first before I tell them what to do. You know, it's kind of like going in someplace into a new company and you don't know what they do or how they do business, and you just start making changes. One, you're not going to know if your changes are really making any effect because you don't know what people were doing beforehand. So how can you make any real changes to it, right? So, all right, so this is a terrible video. However, we're going to try to make use of it. I'm going to try to walk us through it here if it's catching. There we go. We'll give it a moment. I'll talk about it first. So with this is I'm trying to stretch out my right side serratus anterior. Again, being nerdy. Serratus anterior. So I always think of it as these muscles. They're like our hands, like they're big hands that reach across our body. And so the thumbs, I believe, connect back into our shoulder blades, kind of the back portion of our shoulder and our spine there. Here we go. That's the front. It's pec. We can see this picture I like really. How I kind of see it from the front. You can kind of see like it's these fingers that reach through the ribs, and they work on pulling the shoulder blades forward. But they also have a kind of a depression aspect to them as well. They pull the shoulder down into the socket and seat it that way as well. And so for me, I'm a little overactive in there. And so it causes those shoulder issues I've been highlighting and complaining about. And so one of the things I've been working to help set the stage for myself so that way I can get a decent workout in is this fucking stretch that doesn't want to work. Well, we'll show it. Well, unfortunately, I got to fire my camera person. So what I'm doing here is I'm using this beam or this pillar here, just like a doorway. You could do this in just a doorway like behind me here. And I'm grabbing one arm overhead. The affected arm that I'm working is overhead. And then I'm using the other hand just to kind of base. And Paul calls this a kind of a flag pole stretch. So it's kind of like you ever seen some of them calisthenic folks do those wild flagpole exercises. And so I'm trying to create this length in this underside, more just into there. You don't see it in this view, but I'm lifting my right leg in conjunction with all of this and even reaching. All right. Enhance. So my left leg, right, we're just trying to be here. And then my hips are kind of out here, so to speak. But then my right leg is being lifted out here. And I'm even thinking about this sense of kind of pushing myself or reaching through my right leg out to the right some. And what this is nice for me is, again, it's keeping my right side actually in this neutral position more so as I have my arm up overhead reaching here. And so what this does is it doesn't allow me to overbend through my obliques as much. Right? The more I can keep my pelvis even, right? This is really just going to create length in through that serratus region, the region that I'm going for, right? More in that armpit, upper lat. Whereas again, if we let the hips just kind of dangle down, it would create more tension across the pelvis and the space between my ribs and my hips, which is not necessarily what I was going for. And would you look at that? We made it to the top before 8 o'clock. Good news. Good news. Good deals. Well, yeah, that is it for the show. That is it for this morning. Looks like Blondie's had enough too there. Sparky's taking a nap as well. Well, y'all, I just want to thank Panelito. I want to thank Degen. I want to thank Miss Jess. Thank Naj. All of those who came through, chatted, made the stream fun this morning. Thank y'all for being here. And as always, my goal, Paul and I's goal, is just to share knowledge about movement and exercise. If you got pain, if you want to meet us on Tuesdays or Thursdays, Tuesdays 6:30ish p.m., Thursdays 5:40ish a.m. So always whenever. But that's what we're here for. So Tuesdays is more philosophical conversations and thoughts, so to speak. Conceptual stuff. I kind of like to think of the Tuesday more as a lecture, whereas Thursday mornings can be more of a lab practical, right? You go out to the world, you do it, and then you come back and we look over and see how you did. So if you want some help or got some movements that you got questions about, feel free to slide into our Range Fitness Online subreddit. Make a post. It's all anonymous. You don't have to use the same user handle that you have on Twitch if you don't want to. And then, again, we post after the streams. I try to make sure to post them on YouTube so it's up there for forevers. And then, yeah, we just keep rinsing and repeating. I don't think last bit of business. We are working on some AI stuff if you're interested in that kind of thing. So we currently have a free prompt. If you join our newsletter, or web list, email list, Paul will send that out to you. All it is a prompt. So it's only as good as the information you put in it. That being said, we've worked really hard to make it as foolproof. So as long as you put good information in, it will give you a decent, if not excellent, workout based on that input. So if you want it, go check it out. I enjoy it. That's why we're making it. We are building and trying to make one that is going to be uniquely our methodologies and our kind of approaches that's in the hopper. So if that's something you are also interested in, still feel free sign up for the newsletter, because we would anybody who is willing to work with those is going to also help us develop that. So thank y'all. Miss Jess, final comment. We say most welcome. Thank you. Glad to be here. Hopefully I wasn't too much. LOL. Definitely random, funny, but helpful, but respectful. Hey, thank you for being here. Appreciate you. You definitely did not take away. It was very fun having you. It's always great to meet new people out there. I guess we got people in the room, so we've got to be good streamers, right? We got raided. We got to keep the raid going. I don't know if Celsius is still up, but Celsius is always a good one to go raid. So let's see what we can do. This is the other thing I'm not good at, because I never fucking raid. Does every streamer ever, right? Where does this go? We need a stream manager. There it is. Where do we go now? Where do we go? Boom, boom. Boom, boom. All right, Celsi. I think he might be about done, but we'll let y'all go hang out with him for a few minutes. Celsi's a great guy. If you're looking for somebody to do some follow-along workouts with and just a really cool and chill group, Celsi's stream is a great and excellent one for it. No affiliation. He's just a nice guy, I feel. So, without further ado, Rangers, and Raiders, all of y'all. Thank y'all for being here. And until next time, stay mindful as fuck and don't compensate.